I think it would be so wrong of me to even sniff that subject, and it's more in line of actually caring about the human being, and that's something that entirely you're talking about his career, right? His career is his, and that's something that I think I just really, really, really wish I totally understand it, and it's not misplaced. I totally get how that's where people want to go to. I just wish that people would for a second hear what I'm saying, that bringing up his future is not in the best interest of him. So, I'm going to plead with everybody that that does genuinely care, that should be the last thing on your mind, because you don't, like, what do you think that's if I would answer that question, I'd be like, all right, this is my thoughts on his career, and he read it. um if he agreed with it or he disagreed with it, either way, I've just made him worse. So I, I'm not taking this opportunity to just um, not, I don't think it's appropriate, simply because of my care and regard. And I don't think those types of conversations, when you're talking about somebody's career, I think it probably is only fair that their career should be decided by them.
I like Mike McDaniel a lot. I commend him for getting sober. I commend him for the passion and the empathy he shows for his players. I commend him for being unapologetically himself. I absolutely love that about him. I have so much respect for Mike McDaniel, but it's not realistic to expect for people to not comment on Tua's career. That's all we do in sports content, sports media, sports journalism. That's all we do is talk about players' careers. Russell Wilson stinks it up in Denver. What do? We start talking about what this means for his career, what this means for his legacy. The conversation has always and will always be about players' careers, and coaches too, by the way. If the Dolphins only win 3 games this year, we're going to talk about Mike McDaniel's career. That's the direction this train goes. And it's not like injuries are any different. Joe Burrow, he's had some injuries now. He's injury prone. What do we talk about? We talk about his career and what these injuries mean for his career and what these injuries mean for his legacy. Christian McCaffrey, we talk about his injury history a lot. And there's a name that I was expecting to hear in all of the Tua coverage that I just didn't hear. And I was a little surprised I didn't hear his name today. I was expecting to hear the name Luke Kuechly, because Luke Kuechly is a player who was concerned for his long-term health, and he retired early. Another player who I didn't hear his name today, but to be fair, I didn't catch all of the Pat McAfee show. I didn't hear the name Andrew Luck. I didn't hear his name today. And I definitely would have thought that that'd be someone we would talk about, because he's someone who retired early because he was concerned about his long-term health. When Luke Kuechly was getting injured every single year, sports media and everyone else, we did talk about how Luke Kuechly should hang it up or consider hanging it up. Luke Kuechly should think about the long-term implications for his life outside of football if he keeps playing. With Andrew Luck, I don't remember anyone having that conversation. It did feel like a complete shock when he retired. But look, we're going to talk about Tua's career. There's no getting around that conversation. That conversation has to happen. That conversation was happening last night, moments after Tua was injured. We're going to talk about Tua. We're going to talk about what the Dolphins should do moving forward. And maybe this feels a little insensitive to do today because we do care about Tua, the human being, and we do worry about his health for sure. But we're also going to talk about the fact that he sucked on Thursday night. He didn't play like a $53 million a year quarterback should be playing. His decisions in the pocket sucked. And if you don't want to hear stuff like that, you don't want to hear commentary like that, probably don't listen to sports media. Probably don't, pay attention to sports YouTube channels. Probably don't listen to sports radio. Because that's what we do. We talk about players' performances and we cover all of the different angles. And asking us not to because it might hurt Tua's feelings, or it might be inconvenient for your organization, or might even influence him, which I highly doubt. But it's a ridiculous thing to ask us to not talk about it. But before we get to the content, please be sure to like and subscribe, and then smash that notification button so that you don't miss an upload. Thursday night was potentially huge stakes in the AFC early in the season because you get the feeling that either the Bills or the Dolphins are winning the AFC East. And the fact of the matter is the AFC East has belonged to the Bills since Tom Brady left New England. The Bills have won the AFC East 4 straight years now, but this season felt like a retooling year for Buffalo, who had to let go of a lot of their core pieces this offseason, including Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White. They traded Stephon Diggs to Houston. This is a quasi-reset for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Meanwhile, the Dolphins retained most of their pieces, even giving massive extensions to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua Tagovailoa. So it felt like if the big bad bully Bills of the AFC East were going to be had, this would be the year to do it. And beating the Bills in week 2 on a national Thursday night stage would have sent the message that in this division, the Dolphins, not the Buffalo Bills, are the ones to beat. It didn't play out that way on the field. If anything, the Bills proved how solid their program is, even in a retooling, rebuilding, whatever term you want to use, even in a season with so much uncertainty for the Bills coming into the season anyways. The Buffalo Bills still own this division until dethroned. Now, before Tua got injured, he played like shit. I got 3 plays lined up for you here where repeatedly Tua makes bad situations worse. Here's the first one. It's 4th down, which means you know what you absolutely cannot do on 4th down? You cannot take a sack. You can't take a sack. If you feel like you're about to get sacked, you lob the ball up. And when I watched this live, I said, okay, you can't take the sack there. And I'm thinking, okay, you should have just heaved this thing. You should have just heaved it to any direction where one of your receivers is. Just put it in the air. You can't take the sack. Watching the film, it's even worse because Tua didn't have to take the sack. He actually steps into the sack. He has a clean pocket. There was no reason for him to step up and get a sack here. He just made his offensive line's job 1,000 times harder, if not impossible, by for no reason at all stepping up and taking a sack. I mean, this is terrible. This is not $53 million quarterback level of play. Let's go to a different one. First quarter, 3rd and 13, 0-0 ball game. Tua throws behind his receiver into triple coverage. Ball bounces off his receiver's arm and gets picked off. And some people might say like, oh, it's the receiver's fault. If it hits the receiver's got to make a play on it. The receiver's got to catch that ball. The problem with that logic is that the receiver knows he's covered. So the receiver's trying to hit this route hard enough and pick up some space and pick up some speed to create some separation between himself and the defenders and try to get open. The receiver's not looking for the ball when he sees that, okay, I'm covered. There's 3 Bills right here around me. So there's no way Tua's throwing the ball this way. And then next thing you know, he's feeling it on his arm going, oh, shit. And I get that Tua was trying to get out of a sack here. I get that it's 3rd down. But you've already got 3 Bills in the area you're trying to throw to. And as soon as he throws it, really a 4th one kind of shows up into that area. You've got to take your dump offs here. You can't make a bad situation worse. If you dump to number 9, maybe he can make a guy miss and get close to, or maybe even get the 1st down. Even if you don't get it, you punt. And then maybe you pin the Bills deep. Force a 3 and out on them because it's hard playing out of your own end zone. Suddenly, they're punting from their end zone. And what do you know? Next, you're getting the ball back about a minute and a half later in better field position than you were on that 3rd down. It's called playing the field position game. And when I have a quarterback that I'm paying $53 million a year to, I expect him to understand that concept, those fundamentals, the importance of making the right decision on 3rd down, the importance of not making a bad situation worse. Let's go to the last play. 3rd quarter now, 9:40 something on the clock. Score is 24-10. It's not looking good for the Dolphins, but it's not insurmountable yet. It's 2 touchdowns. It's 3rd and 5. Tua's about to get sacked, which isn't good, but wouldn't have been a nail in the coffin. And instead of taking the sack, he tries lobbing it out of bounds off of his back foot. Can't get any power behind the throw because obviously you're heaving off your back foot. Ends up just lollipopping this ball to the sideline. Next thing you know, it gets picked off. Easiest interception of your career. Going the other way. Now it's 31-10. You just made a bad situation worse. And then Tua suffers a concussion a little bit later in the game, which is really hard to see because we've seen it so many times with him. And you can't help but feel for him because you can tell that he loves the game. You can tell he's passionate about it, but he keeps taking these hits to the head. And, you know, look, you've heard it everywhere else, all over the internet the last day and a half. You've heard it everywhere. So I don't have anything too profound to say on this. I'll try and get through this quickly. I do think that Tua and his family need to sit down and have a very real conversation about potentially retiring. Because even at this point in his career, I know he just signed a massive deal, but even at this point in his career, and if he has to give some of it back, whatever. He's made $73 million career earnings. And I get that maybe part of the signing bonus has to go back. I get the feeling him and Stephen Ross could work something out. You've already made generational wealth. You're good for life already with the money you've earned so far in your NFL career. Put that money in the right places. It can grow, make your money work for you. You'll find yourself comfortable for the rest of your life with the money you have already. And you're going to be cognizant and aware of what's going on with your children their entire lives. And you're going to get to enjoy your time with your grandchildren because you'll be cognizant and aware. There's not a price tag on that. So personally, I think Tua should retire. I highly doubt he will. And I wish someone, I don't know who the right someone would be to protect him from himself. I don't know if the Dolphins should protect him from himself. Kind of hard to do now that you're in a, $200+ million contract with him. A little difficult to protect him from himself now. I wish somebody would step in and kind of protect him from himself. So what's it look like for the Dolphins right now? Well, they don't have a timeline for Tua yet. And if something comes out after I post this video, I'll post an update to the top of the comment section. I'll pin it there. But as of right now, the Dolphins only have Skylar Thompson to throw the ball. That's the only quarterback, the only healthy quarterback that they have on the team right now. They've got 9 days before they've got to go to Seattle. Go Hawks. But if Tua's going to miss, 2 to 4 weeks, maybe more, maybe less, who knows? Hell, maybe he takes all of our advice and retires. But if he's gone for an extended period of time, I've got a few quarterback suggestions here. The obvious one, once again, we'll try and go fast because you've heard this everywhere else already. Ryan Tannehill's the super obvious one. And when it comes to Ryan Tannehill, there's really only 2 questions that come to mind that could potentially stop that signing from happening. Number one, how do they feel about each other? Does the organization like Tannehill? Is there any hard feelings? Did he say or do anything bad on his way out the door when he got traded from the Dolphins to the Titans? Is there any bad blood there? Is there anything, are they still holding on to a grudge either side? Is Tannehill mad at the Dolphins? So is he open to a reunion? That's kind of question number one. Is it even possible? Because if Tannehill straight up doesn't want to go to the Dolphins, he's a free agent, doesn't have to go to the Dolphins. Number two, and most importantly here, what does Tannehill want? What's he looking for? Is he looking for a big paycheck? I don't see that happening this year. Is he looking for an opportunity where he can start for a playoff contender for like the remainder of the year and take over type of thing? A la Joe Flacco last year when Deshaun Watson suffered his season-ending injury. Suddenly they hit up Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco leads the Browns to the playoffs. Is Tannehill looking for some Cinderella story like that? Or maybe is Tannehill looking for a team where he can steal the starting job and have it on a more permanent basis? The Giants and the Panthers come to mind as locations where that could be a possibility. What does Tannehill want? I think that's the main question. But all right, we all know Tannehill. We've talked that one before. Another possibility would be trading for a backup. So I came up with a few: Mac Jones, Jared Stidham, Zach Wilson. Hear me out, or Jimmy G. And depending on what the Jags, Rams, Broncos want for compensation for those guys, it could make sense for the Dolphins to trade for one of them. And I imagine Zach Wilson would be the cheapest to get because of all those quarterbacks I just listed. He's technically a third stringer. And I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. I don't think we've gotten a fair assessment on Zach Wilson, so I wouldn't count him out just yet. I'm not saying he's definitely good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't think we know. Because when he played for the Jets, he never had a good offensive line, never had good offensive schemes, never had a receiver to throw to. Hell, we saw Aaron Rodgers play for the Jets the other night, and he didn't look good for the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't look good for the Jets, how the hell do you expect Zach Wilson to look good? And I firmly believe this, because I was thinking about this today as well. Zach Wilson on the Dolphins looks way different than Zach Wilson on the Jets. And I definitely think Zach Wilson gives you a better chance than Skylar Thompson. But I've got one more for you. I've got a wild card, kind of somewhat crazy scenario, but it could play out this Sunday. And if it does, you heard it here first. There's a scenario where Sunday afternoon, suddenly it makes sense that Russell Wilson could be available. If Justin Fields lights up the Broncos, plays amazing, doesn't turn the ball over, he's making some electric plays with his legs, he's making all of the right reads, whatever that looks like on a Steelers offense, and it gets to a point where Mike Tomlin's like, well, I have to stick with Justin Fields now. And he really should. if that scenario happened. If Justin Fields plays really well on Sunday, which we don't know that he will, but if he does, it would make a lot of sense for Mike Tomlin to go, you know what, I got to stick with Fields because in Tomlin's own words, the race between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields for that starting job, he said it was very close. He said it was a tough decision. And so if the decision was tough of who to start, and now we've got 2 regular season games with Justin Fields, and the Steelers are 2-0 and rolling on offense now. I know week 1 they weren't rolling, but if on week 2 against the Broncos, they're lighting it up and suddenly they're scoring touchdowns and it's looking better than it's looked in years there now, how do you turn away from Justin Fields? You got to stick with the hot hand at that point. And if that were to happen, and if that were to play itself out, maybe now the Steelers find themselves in a position where they are open to trading Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson does manage to get traded to the Dolphins, I think that's as good a place as any to revitalize his career. If I'm Russell Wilson, who would I rather be throwing to? The Dolphins receiving core or the Steelers receiving core? And not to mention, Russell's going to miss his revenge game against the Broncos in week 2. But hey, if he gets traded to the Dolphins ahead of week 3, guess who the Dolphins are playing? The Dolphins are playing the Seahawks in Seattle. Chance for a revenge game for Russell. Do I think it's likely? No. But put me down for the long shot on that one. Most important piece of this whole thing, the potential of a Russell Wilson trade to Miami. I get the feeling Sierra would much rather spend her fall and winter in Miami than in Pittsburgh. Just saying. Thanks for watching. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic, and I will catch you guys next time. Later.